Hello, dear friends and comrades. Live. Your favorite program, 60 Minutes. About our most important program, of course, the special news release of the Russian Emergency Army was released on the eastern outskirts of the city of Chas Yar. At present, fierce fighting is taking place in the micro area. The Russian Ministry of Defense channel reported that the Russian army managed to expand the control area of the flank near Chas Yar and confirmed that it was under full control. Bogdanovka, German military expert, he said the Ukrainian armed forces had few air defense systems in the direction of Artemovsk. In principle, so far, the personnel from the city itself have understood this, and there are no German experts. In this video, the opposition is treated in a sofa taken by a Russian drone. This is what our fighters' front position looks like. Uglogorsk has been successful in this direction. Today, the Ministry of Defense announced the release of the new Mikhailovka. Pacific Fleet Marines performed particularly well. The village itself is of great operational significance to cover the city of Uglidar, and the direction of Uglidanskoye before its final attack still needs to be released to the search engine and Konstantin, from which the main supply road of Uglidar itself passes. Today, the Army Air Force, the combat work cadres of the 134th Air Force, are working in the city. Your screens have his Skull movie successes. The Russian army gained a firm foothold in the railway station area and continued its offensive. This is what the German infantry fighting vehicle marker looks like after being hit by a Russian grenade launcher, and the cumulative jet actually burns the German infantry fighting vehicle. Unfortunately for her, our Pedro worked on another American Hummer. He has one confirmed defeat of Canada's new armored vehicle senator. The armored vehicle will whitewash the drones of the 14th Special Forces Brigade in the direction of southern Donetsk, but the head of the mountain, terrorist Budanov, said that in mid-May the Russian army will launch a large-scale offensive in early June at the latest. We're looking forward to it. Well, now fresh and very spectacular footage from the city of Kharkiv. Watch the collapse of the Ukrainian TV tower in Pavlov Pole. The Russian army launched the most precise attack on the Russia-phobic transmitter, and the tower was actually halved, which means that the marathon calf will no longer be in Kharkiv, the second Ukrainian city, and the TV signal has partially disappeared. The problem has been acknowledged by local Walking Blue Lips. It is reported that in addition to brainwashing, the TV tower itself has also played a natural military function for it. The same 240-meter-high tower is the highest point in Kharkiv, and U sources obviously observed the terrain from it. But so far, high-altitude men are figuring out how Russian troops handle their positions. Another Leopard 2 was successfully captured by the 25th Army's operators, and the wandering ammunition accurately pierced the weakest part of the camouflage tank into the roof of the turret, and then the vehicle caught fire. Another damaged German chariot. Ukrainian militants filmed themselves trying to profit from the shortage of spare parts. No survivors were found in the West, and they seriously talked about the uselessness of the Leopard tanks in the Ukraine war. According to El Pais, the German cats transferred to Kiev are of no use. According to the newspaper, Russia's undeniable dominance in the air has rendered such tanks useless. Russian drones are promoting the best that German industry can provide, and because of the large number of non-interchangeable parts, it is impossible to repair them in a short period of time. The word is just a scrape from such a specimen. Leopard 26, the most transferable modification delivered to Kiev, was captured by Russian group fighters. The center moved 62 tons of machina, only with the help of armored maintenance evacuation vehicles. And now the car is on a cargo trawl en route to Moscow. But even after months of congressional struggles, Shatki approved $61 billion in aid to Ukraine by 210 votes to 112. The package itself exceeds all previous payments the U.S. state has provided to Ukraine. But this is only at a glance, but in fact it is $23 billion out of $60 billion. They will replenish the arsenal of the U.S. military. That is, they will replace the U.S. military with the U.S. military that has been supplied to Ukraine. Another $13.8 billion will be used to purchase the latest weapon systems for the army itself from SHA, and $11 billion and $3 billion will be used for some military operations with SHA and the region. This is probably the most mysterious point. No such operations were reported. But in Ukraine, it's not known which region, what's the confession, but another $8 billion will be used to cover the deficit. The UKRO budget is part of the money and is provided in the form of loans. In other words, Americans are helping themselves. The Kremlin has announced that the new handouts from the United States will further destroy Ukraine and further enrich Ukraine. In response, members of the House of Representatives shouting and holding Ukrainian flags celebrated the approval of the aid with great fanfare. Democrats are particularly angry. Connolly, and as they say now, gave out the base. He said Ukraine's border with Russia is the border of the United States. It's up to the Senate now. They will vote on Tuesday, but as you know, the Democratic majority in the Senate has no conspiracy here. Republican Minority Leader Paul McConnell. After the Senate, the bill will be as pro-Ukrainian as possible and will be sent to Joe Biden for signature. The first deliveries in the United States are set to begin by the end of the week. That is to say, the Pentagon has everything ready, the U.S. auditors have prepared in advance, and they want to send up to 60 people to Kiev. Military advisors for consultation and coordination. In other words, Ukrainians will not even be allowed to master their own credit funds. Reuters has written that if Donald Trump becomes president, aid could be suspended on the 25th. At the same time, Reuters directly linked the new U.S. missile defense law of $60 billion to the Ukrainian mobilization law. The scandalous law itself took effect on May 18th, and Tarasov has less time to flee the country to save his skin. But who still succeeds? Look at this. A group of Ukrainians escaped at the expense of their own ingenuity. One of the guys put on camouflage and pretended to be an escort. And 4 more. Now they are all lucky to go to Hungary. And even more surprisingly, the story may have taken place in Odessa. Ukrainian border guards fled from there to Moldova while patrolling the border. The border guards escaped, record-breaking. Donik waited for his partner to fall asleep, changed into a civilian, left his uniform, and calmly crossed the Ukrainian border. This is the 3rd confirmed case of the same type. Only in April is the next stage. Apparently, this was the escape of the military commissar himself when they realized that everyone would soon be sent to the trench. Meanwhile, the Lviv Central Committee, together with the City Council, called on Mikol to voluntarily register in court with the help of a very suspicious video. A new video shows a Russian soldier in the morning of the Russian Liberation Army in the city of Lviv. At the end of the video, a soldier looks out of the window at City Hall and a Russian Ka-52 helicopter flying over the City Hall. At this moment, the inscription appears on the screen. Will this never happen? Before that, let me remind you that the Lviv Central Committee had filmed a video in which Ukrainian defectors had been mobilized to the Russian army after the war and sent to Berlin itself. Today I reported how much he actively helped the Kiev regime in the first quarter of 24. The German government issued arms export licenses worth €5 billion and €2 billion, 03.15. The money went to the Kiev regime amid rising military orders and a crisis in Germany's auto industry. The German defense industry is becoming an attractive place to work. Bloomberg wrote to us earlier that the military-industrial complex was classified as a sin industry. Think of this wording for sinful industries such as casinos and tobacco companies, but the Germans were also somewhat embarrassed, referring to historical memory, embarrassed to say that they were making weapons again, but things have changed since then. Rheinmetall, the largest defense company, expects sales to exceed 10 billion euros this year. Versus families too last year. The company hired another 4,000 new employees in a year, and this is the case across absolute Europe. In 3 years, EU countries' defense spending has increased by 13%, and the total has approached $500 billion. Arms concerns are using shovels to raise money. Baltic states are discussing the return of compulsory military service. In the West, they are really preparing for a real war with our country. But while Europe is preparing to go to war with Russia, the Americans are sitting quietly on the other side of the ocean, developing weapons of the future. Anyway, judging from these footage released by the Pentagon, let's take a look. This is the first training air battle involving the robotic fighter Ha-62A and the human-piloted X-62 fourth-generation 16 fighter, and the same F-16 fighter, but modified for artificial intelligence. The Pentagon is happy to say that autonomous air combat has so far been a military dream, but the successful application of robotic systems may be a turning point. The point of view was officially expressed by the head of the BSSA, Franken. In other words, scientists at the Potsdam Climate Institute predict that Washington is preparing for future wars, but the future itself has a future, and the West may not have a dark time. According to them, by the middle of this century, that is about 25 years later, the increase in extreme precipitation and temperature will cause global losses of $38 trillion every year, and the total income of all countries in the world will drop by 19%. We're talking about the world's largest economy. Coincidentally, the most supportive of Kiev are Germany, France, Britain, and the United States. They will all lose 10 to 20% of their GDP. But only 2 countries will survive climate change best, and the small spoilers of these countries' economies are at high latitudes. This is Russia, and Canada may be lucky. But for all Donald Trump's peace-loving followers, separate news emerged that Trump changed his shoes on Saturday and actually supported Speaker of Congress Mike Johnson, hiding in his Mar-a-Lago on polling day, and Donald Trump said nothing. According to the magazine, Dwight will become the new Jesus Christ, a martyr and maybe a criminal in court. Donald Trump spends 4 p.m. a week, and the passion surrounding his process. The sum was actually taken directly from the New York courthouse, where Donald's bribery of porn actresses was heard. The man set himself on fire for an urban madman, turned out to be American Max Zarevela, and he revealed his motive for setting himself on fire. He wrote on his social network. He accused Trump and Biden of preparing for an apocalyptic fascist world coup, and they could not save Ozarilla, who died. Hospital, the rest of Americans at 65% believe Trump didn't break the law. That is to say, the main goal set by the Democratic Party, the Trump trial, has not been achieved, and Joe has not been able to reverse his seemingly negative popularity among the people. In the latest poll released before Hill, Trump continued to bypass Biden by 3%. At the same time, Biden himself was shocked not even by his ratings, but by the fact that even young American children showed him their middle fingers and sent him to hell with his grandfather's PR experts. Now, a new strategy, a joint ad with Barack Obama. The main message is vote for Joe. Everything will be like under Obama, that is, with sheesh. The whole world will wait for World War II. Economic crisis.
США и весь мир будет ждать мировой экономический кризис.